Hello everyone, Franco here with Frank Analysis. I'm about to show you guys a clip that was only in the Rockfin portion of the interview. So this video is the first time it's being broadcasted here in YouTube. Before I show that, I want to have this conversation with you all. Whether you've been following me now for since I had 50 subscribers, or if you just found this channel, or even if you're Jimmy Dore. This is an important message that we all need to hear if we actually want to achieve the goals that we want. Okay, because what is the whole point of why we watch independent media? It's because we want to inform ourselves, right? We want to inform ourselves so that we can understand what the problems are. And after we understand what the problems are, then we discuss solutions, and we want to get to those solutions, right? So this question that I asked Jimmy that you guys are about to see, this is coming from people who've been following me since I had about 50 subscribers, since I was just a really tiny channel that I had no idea I would ever get to where I am today. As well as people who I discuss a lot in my Discord. So I interact a lot with my audience members. I go on, we talk a lot in voice channels, or through text, like on the Discord. And I hear their critiques about, not just myself, but of other channels, especially the bigger channels, because of how much influence that these people have. Now, I want to also share my thoughts on how the whole interview was. What Jimmy told me, and what I got the sense was that he is tired and he's sad about all the smears and attacks people are throwing at him. And I can definitely understand that. It's a lot of stress to put on one person. That hope that of a Bernie or a Tulsi becoming president and saving everybody, it's not there anymore. Which during 2018 to 2020, Jimmy was at his peak in terms of energy and confidence. He still has both energy and confidence, but I could definitely see it more during that time period I mentioned. This is back when I would plug in his video clips as I would drive to my college campus and I'd listen to his show. I mean, back then, he would still get attacked and smeared by people like Sam Cedar and the Majority Report, but there was more hope. Things are more unsure now. We don't know if a third party is going to save us. We don't know if we have to opt out of the system. I'm talking in terms of, the audience of independent media viewers. Right, on this channel, we talk solutions. I have panel discussions with different people, with other content creators, with journalists, and we talk about solutions. And I have my solutions. Mine are opting out of the system and organizing with your communities, teaching different skills and not giving money to these corporations, because our politicians are not going to save us. And it doesn't matter who we have in office, and we have to apply pressure to whoever is there. So back then, during that time period, Jimmy was also still in good terms with Kyle and Crystal and David Dole and Mike Figueredo. But as time passed on, Jimmy lost these friends. And if they're not smearing him, they're fence sitting, or they're creating false equivalencies. So it's heartbreaking for him, right? A lot of these people he considered as his friend or even as close to family. And now they are siding with the mainstream media propagandists who smear independent media and beat the drums for war. Now that the mask it fell off of Bernie Sanders and AOC and other progressive Congress people, there's no one for the synthetic left to hide behind. So now their masks are coming off. From TYT during Forced to Vote to their old disgusting footage that was recently exposed, their pro-war content, to Sam Cedar embarrassing himself in a debate with Brianna Joy Gray and then running to Twitter to cry, angry black woman, to David Dole and Mike Figueredo defending TYT and imperialist bread tubers like Vosh, to Kyle and Crystal fence-sitting and still giving Democratic politicians the benefit of the doubt. These people have nowhere to hide and are being fully exposed. Audience members are waking up and are seeing commentators like Jimmy Dore and journal outlets like The Gray Zone as the more authentic voices. And because Jimmy and The Gray Zone have the facts on their side. People like TYT and Ryan Grimm and The Intercept will respond with smears, with accusations based on lies, personal attacks. It's an indication that these synthetic leftists, like TYT, and anyone who still defends their work and disingenuous attacks, they've lost. Their credibility is done. I mentioned Jimmy Dore and the Gray Zone as the new prominent voices of the left, as well as the new voices for independents who appreciate objective information. There is a bigger world of authentic journalists and rising commentators that exist that's yet to be recognized by enough audience members. So we have to help these new voices, as well as the more esoteric voices that have been around for a long time. They just haven't been recognized by enough people yet. We have to help these people grow. They're being heavily suppressed on YouTube, heavily suppressed on Twitter, heavily suppressed on Facebook. Some of them aren't even on YouTube anymore, and they never were. And the way we can overcome these obstacles is by having more collaboration with each other and promoting each other's work. One show, let alone one man, cannot cover everything. I highly recommend people to diversify their sources. So with the credibility and large platform and major influence Jimmy has, what he covers can shift the conversation and our political awareness. It's good to admire his work and enjoy his show, but don't just rely on him. He is one show, one platform, and there's other journalists and commentators that exist that can help you expand your political awareness in addition to the Jimmy Dore Show. There are some expectations that are being placed on Jimmy now because of this, and it's understandable because of the focus he has now. Look at how many people are watching his live shows now. So some audience members who are deeper into the information world feel an urgency to get him to cover more issues. I asked Jimmy what he thinks about these critiques in this clip that I'm going to show you guys. But at the end of the day, like I said, we can't just rely on one person, no matter how good they are at what they do. They'll need support from other voices, and you also have to diversify your sources, like I said. So it's time to make TYT, Majority Report, Secular Talk, Breaking Points, Rational National, Humanist Report, and all these other synthetic leftist shows irrelevant. And it's time to make more objective and authentic voices like The Convo Couch, Niko House, Fred Hampton Leftist, Slow News Day, Whitney Webb, Richard Medhurst, Vanessa Beeley, Eva Bartlett, Derek Brose, Robert Inlakesh, and The Last American Vagabond, and so many others more relevant. There is no excuse for these smaller shows and journal outlets to have fewer subscribers and followers than the synthetic leftist channels. And if you want to still listen to the synthetic leftist channels, like I mentioned, like if you want to still listen to Kyle or Crystal, you can do that. I'm not for any cancel culture or anything. I just strongly recommend that you proceed with an open mind and to please at least support the smaller, more authentic channels that I mentioned and help them grow. And there's plenty of other more smaller channels that exist out there that are on the rise. And moderators, a lot of you guys have been following me for a long time. I understand the desperation that you guys feel of trying to get people to evolve more, but be patient. Be patient, please. No one is going to be in the same place in the path during their political awakening. Now, there's also 2 additional questions that I didn't get to ask Jimmy because of time, and I wish I had asked him, but I'll ask it here. If you're watching, Jimmy, I hope you consider these 2 questions and you have them in mind. The first one is, what does this mean now for the Jimmy Dore Show? Now that TYT and their friends are unmasked, what does this mean now for your show? And the second question is, how will you help smaller, authentic voices grow more, in addition to going on their shows, so that we can ensure that TYT and the other synthetic leftists stay irrelevant? Now, with that being said, again, I appreciate Jimmy coming on my show and enjoy this clip. So, Jimmy, I just have this final question here. You have time for it?
Sure.
Yeah. So this isn't necessarily like my beliefs or anything, but this is just like criticism that I hear from people, and I just want to hear. I'm curious about your response to these criticisms that some people give. People who appreciate your show and have been watching for a long time, but don't watch as much anymore as they used to. I will say I'm not in complete agreement with this, but I am curious to hear what your response is to these criticisms. They say that the bulk of your content is now still covering Russiagate and the OPCW report ad nauseum, as well as going after TYT and AOC so much after they become low-hanging fruits. I will say that I think the OPCW and Russiagate stuff is still very, very important, and the mainstream media is still peddling this narrative. So it's good that you cover this so you can correct the record. But what about covering other topics like direct action events people can attend, exposing Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and the Great Reset, which John Kerry, Bill Gates, and even some people who pose themselves as progressives, like Bernie's economic advisor Stephanie Kelton, attended, or what's happening in Latin America, or how Africa is being exploited, how we can organize with our communities and help each other opt out of the system to stop giving money to corporations. What do you say to people who give these criticisms?
Um, I don't know what I mean. I cover whatever I'm having a passion for. I think I'm one of the few shows that covered Venezuela correctly. In fact, I was debunking
Yeah.
everybody's coverage in real time, and I debunked everybody's coverage of Syria in real time. I was debunking the mainstream news coverage of Libya in real time. I covered Peru. We covered um, what was happening with Glenn. We covered. I you know I covered the Allard Prize, which then people bad faith attacked me over. So which is an award that they give out to the journalists that are fighting being persecuted for telling the truth against corruption. And so I you know I um, it can't cover everything, and I try to cover everything as
Yeah.
much as I can. And I think my effort through Force to Vote was all consuming, and and then just now fighting off these attacks. Ever since Force to Vote, the establishment's been coming for me nonstop, 6 months in a row, and so it's kind of hard, to kind of keep a clear head and a sense of what's happening. Well, I covered the strikes in India.
Mm.
Um, I covered, we covered America was up until just a few years ago still produced, we were bombing Syria because we were saying he's using chemical weapons. We were still making cluster bombs
Yeah.
in the United States and deploying them in Yemen.
Yeah.
And it's a war crime. And
Yeah.
anyway, so we, I'm very comfortable with my niche. Like I think my show by far than all the other YouTube shows covers things. I feature people like Aaron Mate in the Gray Zone, and Eva Bartlett. I've had her on my show at least 3 times. So I get people like Bill Binney on my show. I get people, so I feature Jordan Cheriton all the time. People with firsthand reporting knowledge. And I mean, I featured the reporting of Robert Fisk when he was debunking the Syrian narrative too, and no one else would,
Mm.
and even BBC was smearing him. So I'm the one who plays the Jeffrey Sachs video when he was on MSNBC, and he told the truth about our dirty war in Syria, that it was invented by the CIA through a program called Timber Sycamore. Now, I don't see anybody else pushing that.
Mm.
And so, I mean, half the YouTubers are in bed with the Young Turks or wannabe, and so they're citing. You see people like the Humanist Report and David Dole, and they've made their bed with the MSNBC light crowd and the Union Busters and the misogynist pigs over at the Young Turks,
Yeah.
and that's who they've chosen a side, and people see it, and so that's too bad for them. So I wish I could be all things to all people. I'm not kidding that when I say I'm a pothead jagoff comedian in my garage, and I have a staff. I have more technical. I only have one guy help me put together things. But anyway, um, so yeah, I preach. I mean, I don't mind people giving me suggestions of stuff I should cover.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic. But I also covered when Ecuador got bribed by Goldman Sachs to turn their back on Julian Assange, right? And then I saw other YouTube shows laughing about that. That Julian Assange didn't take care of his fuck, didn't clean up his room, and the Ecuadorians want him
Right.
out. No, they wanted him out because they got bribed by Goldman Sachs. You're not telling that part of the story. You guys are pushing along propaganda to smear Julian Assange. What the
Right.
fuck is that about, Franco?
All right. It's really, disgusting. This guy's suffering for telling the truth. And what I tell people is like, guys, like when they ask me, hey Franco, why aren't you covering this? Like, I'm only one person, and if I can't cover something, or if I can't go in depth, I can refer to people, that are covering it in depth, which you do, with the Gray Zone, and you mentioned Eva Bartlett. We're only like one person. It's just like the point here for having all of us is, for people to diversify their sources. Everybody's going to be, covering different things, and you
But you
put
guys
all the
are,
puzzle pieces together and see how it all connects.
yeah.
And it's also time to make TYT and all those people like irrelevant. Like we're like Jimmy, like everybody, all these new channels now. We're covering actual things.
I
And
think if
it's
you have
it's
a
time to make
YouTube,
that more relevant.
if you have a YouTube show that's on the NBC platform and you have an MSNBC contract, I don't think you're an independent news show.
He's not. Yeah.
You're on the corporate
They're not.
algorithm,
Yeah.
and you're on the corporate algorithm, and everybody sees it. Yet there's still nobody watches your show. Isn't that amazing? People who have
Hmm.
over 1 million subscribers. I've been stuck at 869,000 subscribers for months, right? Even though I'm getting killer views, right, per video. And you go watch these other channels that have over 1 million subscribers. No one's watching their show. So I mean, in comparison to what their subscriber base says it as well was interested in watching.
Hmm.
So yeah. Anyway, so uh, I'm really proud of my show, and I'm really proud of the content we curated, and we've gone where other people were super afraid to go, uh,
Hmm.
particularly debunking that, and that's why I stuck to debunking the Syria pro-war narrative, and no one else. So still, the Young Turks are pushing it. So they do that thing where they push all the talking points for war and intervention, and then go, well, we don't want intervention. Well, you can't do that. You can't validate the CIA's talking points and their pro-war narrative, their pretext for war. You can't validate it and then say, but we shouldn't go. We should. So they're tools. They're being tools on purpose. So anyway, so I appreciate that question, and I always, when people give me, you know, ideas to cover stuff, like we also covered Steve Donziger, and whereas a lot of other people didn't, including the Young Turks, Anna Kasparian doesn't even know who he is. So
Yeah. They're a joke right now. It's just mainstream news. They are corporate news on YouTube.
yes,
Yeah, Jimmy, I appreciate your time. Like, once again, I want you to know I admire, what you do. And all I'm proud to see like all these newcomers, being more awake than the previous the previous like, I don't know what to call them, like the gatekeepers, those MSNBC contract people and TYT. Like, I think we're seeing progress. And I think that a lot of that has to do with, people like yourself who tell the truth. So thank you very much, Jimmy. I really
okay,
appreciate you taking your time and being here.
my pleasure. Keep up the good work, pal.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Take care. Bye bye.